ANC's reputation has been significantly tarnished this year, some might argue, for the last decade. But this year it's been particularly damaging. There was July's unrest and now this week's local government election results. Now, various political parties declaring that they will not enter into coalitions with the ruling party. Let's discuss this now with brand reputation management advisor Solly Moeng, who joins us virtually from Switzerland. Solly, thank you so much for your time this evening. The hits just kept coming if you were part of the ANC. This year, particularly bad. And in the backdrop, we had the ongoing Zondo Commission, where every day you had almost a live stream of bad news pointing a finger to corruption and malfeasance within the ruling party. And the back of that, they had to run a campaign for local government elections. A better life for all used to be their one well-known rallying cry before. Some were saying this election, their campaign merely said, we will do better. In your opinion, Solly, was that the best approach for them, for their campaign going into this local government elections from a brand point of view?
No, not at all. Look, the ANC has been in power for 27 years, going on 28 now. They've run out of ideas. I mean, a lot of the promises they made this year are not new promises. They made these promises before and failed. But as you said in the introduction, its brand has been damaged over time. The Zondo Commission, all the things that have been revealed to have been done by people sometimes at the top echelons of the ANC, some of whom, or most of whom, or all of whom are still out there walking the streets or walking the corridors of power, or walking the corridors of Lutuli House. So it really deserves what's coming. And I'm really excited that South Africans for the first time woke up and said, enough is enough. I'm very excited that political parties are saying we're not going into an election with the ANC, because the solutions that South Africa needs in order to reputationally recover will not be found in the ANC. It's tried 27 years, it's failed.
We've just had a story where the ANC says they're planning to go and have a party in Soweto. And this is one of the places where people stayed away from the polls in their numbers. Many would say to try and prove a point. They've had bad service delivery. They've had an ongoing fight about electricity bills in Soweto with the ruling party. And now the ANC says they're going to go and have a party. From a brand point of view, what would you advise a party who's just come out of their worst election result in the last two decades? Is that the best way to put their best foot forward and try and mend bridges with their supporters in a place like Soweto?
No, it's not. It's definitely not. I think what the ANC should be doing instead is apologize. They need to acknowledge, frankly, to South Africans in Soweto and in other parts of the country, that they have failed South Africa, they have failed South Africans, they've allowed high levels of arrogance and impunity to run high inside of the political party, the ANC. They've really given the middle finger to South Africans consistently. So what they should be doing now is to say, now we know you've given us a kick in the butt. We're really, really sorry. We acknowledge that we deserve the kick that you've given us. But then what they're going to do, party is what they do best, party. And they think South Africans will continuously fall for partying and dancing. It's over.
Now, when it comes to branding, it's not just about selecting a nice picture to put on a poster. It's really about the DNA of an organization. I think you'd agree. I mean, I'm no expert. You are. If you had to sit down with an organization like the ANC, it's very traditional still in many ways, steeped in history as a freedom-fighting organization, and there are many people in there who perhaps would be against any kind of modernization or change in the way they do business, in the way they put their best foot forward, in the way they represent themselves. How would you manage or try and get through to people inside an organization like that?
Well, you know, the first rule of reputation management is to acknowledge when you've done wrong and to say, this is what happened to lead to the things that happened. These are the measures we're putting in place to make sure those things don't happen again. And part of putting measures in place means getting people arrested. I know the ANC is not the NPA, the ANC is not the police, but over the state capture period, the ANC under Zuma, supported by the ANC, we must not forget that, placed all sorts of dodgy people in our key institutions, including the SAPS and the NPA. That's why these institutions have been failing, have not been acting on the people who should be in jail right now. So the ANC needs to say, we're not doing this anymore. we're going to look the other way. We have to give the power and the independence to the institute, to the criminal justice system, to act against anybody, whoever they are. They should be apologizing to South Africans.
So
South
you're
Africans
saying,
have woken up now.
so you're saying, don't just say you're going to do better, actually do better.
Yes, yes, of course. The ANC has been paying lip service to doing right over time. They've been defending the indefensible for many years. I mean, there are people who are so dodgy. We've seen them being redeployed. Some of them are still MPs. They are lawmakers. Now, how do you make criminals into lawmakers? What kind of laws are criminals going to make? There are people sitting in our National Assembly in the name of the African National Congress who shouldn't be there at all. But the ANC doesn't care. The ANC has been thinking all this time that it will continuously benefit from the fact that it played a role. It didn't liberate South Africa. It is one of the organizations that played a role in liberating South Africa. It can't claim all of that credit for its own. But South Africans are waking up. They're beginning to say, wait a minute, you can't keep telling us the same thing over and over again. It must stop.
Perhaps I can throw a question to you just from a different perspective before I let you go. Now, many would say that the ANC were ripe for the picking in this upcoming or this last local government elections, and yet the biggest opposition party, the DA, failed to take advantage of that. Their results also took a knock from up-and-coming new parties that sprung up as people were desperate for something new and something fresh, perhaps not even something better. Some people just voted for a party that was different. What are your thoughts on how the Democratic Alliance presented itself in these last elections as they tried to recover from the loss of Musi Maimane, and they really looked like they were taking a completely different direction, and yet still not steering too far away from the Gafar politics as we see spring up or rear its head every election time?
Yeah, the DA made a number of mistakes. What it did, for instance, in Phoenix, calling people for fresh after the killing of black people, calling them heroes, it was a big mistake. The DA should never play the race issue, because it has this big race shower hanging over its head. So it made some mistakes, made many mistakes. I think that all opposition parties in South Africa, including the DA and especially the DA, mustn't assume that because some people are angry at the ANC, they will naturally navigate towards them. It was their responsibility to put themselves out there to convince South Africans that they can be a better alternative to the ANC. They didn't. They relied on people being angry at the ANC and voting for them, which is a big mistake. The DA used to have an ambition to become a potential governing party in South Africa, but that ambition is gone now. They were now looking for 20%. They don't have that ambition anymore. They need to find a way to appeal to South Africans if they want to be there. Any party, the EFF, the DA, all these other parties that have ambitions to become the biggest party in the future, they have to understand what the aspirations of the South Africans are. And they must also not forget that the only other time when South Africa wasn't governed by the African National Congress, it was a really bad place for black people. It was apartheid. So a lot of black people are still unable to imagine a South Africa without the ANC, which is a good place for South Africans, or especially for black people. It is up to the imagination of the alternatives to say we can still offer you the things that you need without being reliant on or having the ANC in the crawl with us.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for your insight. That's Brand Reputation Management Advisor Solly Moeng coming to us live there from Switzerland.